This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. You're a little bit of a mystery on the intranets, so I want to know, don't you love that? Do you love that start?
Yeah, not unintentional.
No, but in some ways good. I think as an actor, don't you feel like there's a little bit of, it's better for there to be some ambiguity so they can project onto you versus having everything be out there?
I suppose it goes both ways. I think if you're really good at the internet and you're really good at projecting a super authentic version of yourself through posts on Instagram or
I
Twitter or
know.
whatever else, then I'm sure it can really work in your favor. It's just never felt like something that I really wanted to invest that much energy.
Yeah.
And when I was, it was both doing what it was designed to do, give you anxiety about
Yeah.
doing more of it and the amount of likes you're getting and shit like that. And so, yeah, look, I did literally 2 weeks ago open an Instagram, which I've made one post on and don't have any particular plan to do anymore in the near
Did you get
future.
forced? Was there a show that was like, okay, you have to do this now?
No, it was
Good.
more like what's the answer to that question? The answer is that I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional about publicity for the first time in a long time, which
I
is
get that.
really something I'm generally extremely allergic to. And so I guess in theory, like in part of that concerted effort is this, although, like I said, there's just no rhyme or reason to how I have any plan to post. I don't really think that it's going to be, it's just not really my medium, I think. But
I totally get it. Look, we get a lot of you. We get a lot of you in our living rooms and for years. So you know what? You're already entertaining us. You don't have
yeah.
to pick up a whole other skill. But I was just curious, like I didn't, did you, was like this the idea like growing up where you're like, I'm gonna be an actor like this? Because I want to know how you fall into Generation Kill. I want to start at Q-Tip. I want to start with the audition for that. Because Wilson, going all the way back, working with you on Heart of Dixie, right?
Right.
That's such a specific small town Southern character. You
Yeah.
know what we're getting with the CW. Getting to go back this last week and watch some of your earlier stuff or just the vast majority of your stuff. What a wide range.
It's a pretty wild. It's been an interesting run, man. Yeah.
Dude, it's been amazing. But okay, so OC, fine. I'm gonna give you the OC. Anybody that's good looking, great. You get an episode of the OC because you live in California. But start me from the beginning of, okay, I want to do this. And then I want to get to
Well, I don't
Generation
think
Kill.
I would say that I had any inkling that I really wanted to do this until I was probably like 8 years into what somebody might call a career. I wasn't, it was not at all something I thought of as a destiny or a career pursuit or anything other than a lark for a long time. I grew up performing and like doing school plays, and I always had a very big personality. And I did things like poetry slams and shit in high school. And I was very comfortable being on stage, and I liked writing, I liked performing. All of that was, yeah, it felt very much like part of my DNA. But there was no world in which I ever thought of this as being like a long-term career.
So
Yeah,
how does one fall into this then? How does one get the OC and then jump
yeah,
from Jack? Like you once you start working, it's okay, here you go, tick, tick, tick. And then to end up on Generation Kill,
yeah.
HBO.
Yeah. So I'll try and make this semi-short and not bore people to death. But basically, I played pretty serious tennis for most of my growing up. And I grew up mostly in New Hampshire, but then my mom moved to Northern California when I was starting high school. And when I was in high school, I started coming down to LA for periods of time, sometimes weeks, sometimes even like a month or two at a time to train to play tennis. And at that time, my like I would stay with this like tennis coach guy who was like an ersatz father figure to me at the Oakwood Apartments in Burbank. It has its own
With
sort
all
of
the actors.
mythos.
Uh,
And while I was staying there, I was introduced to a manager. And at that time, I was like 15 years old or 16 years old. And he was like, "Did you want to go on some auditions?" And I was like, I was a tennis player. I was playing tennis, but I was like, yeah, sure. And so I would be down here for, sometimes I would be down here for like a few weeks. I would go out on one audition. I'd come back 6 months later, maybe go on another audition for some shit. And it was just like something I was like, yeah, sure, why not? We'd be driving around in his fucking Nissan and I couldn't drive.
Pop in and do a random
Yeah,
audition.
and then disappear. And it wasn't, I never really thought much of it. And then after I graduated high school, I had deferred from college for a year. I was going to go to school in New York and decide, okay, I'll defer so I can go traveling. I traveled for a year. And when I got back from my travels, I was supposed to go to New York. I was waiting tables up in San Francisco for that summer. And when it came time to pack my car up and drive to the East Coast, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just stop in LA on my way to New York. And I never left. So
And was the same manager, hey,
yeah, well,
hop on in?
basically, he had actually, I think he had moved away at that by then, but he still like, or maybe he hadn't, I don't know. But he put me in touch then with a couple people. He set me up with a couple agent interviews. So I was teaching tennis lessons. And I was just here. I basically, for all intents and purposes, had basically hung up any possibility of going to college because I just ghosted on my first day of school.
Didn't even tell them
I
you were
didn't
gonna
even
say,
tell them. I just never sent the first enrollment check. And then they were just like, they just stopped emailing me. Okay. And then I was here and I was like 18 or 19 years old. I was fully enthralled by the idea of being in a place where I basically knew nobody, where I really didn't have a plan, where there was no kind of structure at all, whether through a university or through any other sort of guardrails of life. I just spent like a year traveling in Africa and it was just like completely, I was just not on the path of anything traditional. And so I was just like, all right, this is what I want. I just want to just figure out what it is to be like a young adult, I guess. And anyway, so I was like just loving being in LA and not really having any plan. But then that manager hooked me up with, I think it was the one agency I went to was Paradigm. And I literally went in there and I performed spoken word poetry for a couple of the agents. I was fucking 19. I didn't
yeah.
shit, dude. I was just like, and I think they were like, this kid, who the fuck does this kid think he is? And also, I guess we'll sign him because who the fuck does he think he is? So
Especially at 18, 19 years old, it's the bravado that gets you hired.
that's it.
100%. So spoken word gets you
That got me in
paradigm.
the door.
Okay. So now, okay, so we get the one-offs. You get the OC, you get JAG, we have NCIS. Like you're getting these little moments of getting on set. I want to hear the audition because
Not even. If like all of that shit, I
yeah.
swear to you, it doesn't even register as a memory for me. OC does because it was like a traumatic memory.
Wow, because it's your
Like,
first credit. So I want to hear first audition, first credit. I think that's really
right.
interesting. Why was
Yeah.
it
Okay.
why was it so bad?
So what happened with the OC was, and I think I've told Rachel Bilson has a podcast, and I think I told
Yep.
the story on there. But basically, the short version is it was the first big shot I had at anything, and then I didn't get another big shot for years after it. But I tested for one of the like lead roles on the OC, and didn't get it, obviously. And sure, and then of course, 2 weeks later, I was working a catering job, and they sent me to serve cocktail weenies at the fucking like executive screening of the pilot episode of the OC. So I'm like passing out fucking pigs in a blanket to like all the guys who had auditioned for 3 weeks earlier or whatever. Anyway, but and then whatever, like a couple months later, down the road, the casting direct there was like a small recurring role that they were casting for, and because I hadn't gotten the other role, they did me a solid and they put me in it. But I had never been on set before. I didn't know my ass from my elbow, and I was a stubborn, stupid young man who like didn't ask any questions about like how to read a call sheet or like basically we went into a long weekend. We went into a weekend, and prior to that, in back in the day, you would get a call every night before from like the second AD or whatever. Here's your call time for tomorrow and whatever. And I didn't get a call on whatever Sunday night. So I just figured, okay, I guess I'm not working tomorrow. And I lived in a basement sublet at the time, and there was no service. And so I woke up that morning at 9:30 or whatever, leisurely get out of bed and get to where there's service. My phone like explodes with like 100 messages. I was like already at that point, I was like 3 hours late, and they were shooting in like deep Malibu in like rush hour Monday morning traffic.
Oh
So I
shit.
ended up being like 5 ish hours late to set. And they had basically given my role to an extra. I had already shot a couple of days of the show, but
Oh, damn.
but yeah, there was this whole, they put me through like makeup and all that stuff. They brought me up to set and like literally like get on set and they were finishing the scene. So I didn't even, they were like rushed me up there. They had given my role to an extra. They give a standing ovation to the extra and then they sent me home. It was like,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm glad you just retold that here, even though
yeah.
Rachel got it first. But wait a, if that's your first credit, that's your first experience to then turn around and do 50, 60 projects thereafter, like
Yeah.
humble pie, humble pie.
Dude, I feel like every element of my career has been just like a constant re-reckoning with with my fucking humility. But yeah, that was a good early reminder, I guess.
And
And
then
yeah,
at that point, were you like, okay, I want to do this, so let me see? Because you even said it was 8 years into your working career that you were like, oh, okay, I think I'm actually doing this. Did that humility sprint into, oh, okay, let me actually figure out what's going on, or was it still fumbling onto the path? Because
yeah, very much fumbling onto the path, very much. And so like even at that point, I think my agent dropped me after that.
Paradigm said, no, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're like, you're a fuck up, get lost. And I don't remember how exactly I linked. I think I was probably just with my manager for a little bit. And then at some point, they might have connected. I think I ended up with Innovative at some point around then, maybe like a year or so later. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because just for people that are listening versus watching, the OC comes out in 2004. Not that you maybe shot it, maybe you might have shot it into 2003. And then Generation Kill, which, I mean, that's a pretty sizable experience role. We've already talked to John Huertas. I love John. Worked
Yeah.
with John. And then who else? There's been a couple other people we've talked to from the cast.
Yeah.
His audition for that was crazy gnarly.
Yeah.
You have a 3, 4 year gap to try to figure out what you're doing, or does Generation Kill also like a we don't
Dude, I'm
know?
still figuring out what I'm doing, man. It's not like I went through some conservatory program where, like everything I've learned about acting, I've learned from auditioning and from being on set and from watching movies and TV shows. And so it's all been a learning process. But no, like in the whole early stage of my career, which that's why I don't even call it a career. It was such not a priority. I was like in my early 20s and waiting tables and playing tennis and having
Yeah.
a shitload of fun, being just like a young person in LA. And I didn't even tell any of my friends that I was like auditioning for things. It wasn't even on anybody's radar at all because because number one, it wasn't something that I felt super invested in. Again, it felt like a lark. It felt like this sort of, oh, like this is like this thing that I occasionally do. And it also felt really unlikely. So I didn't, and that's whatever, like a window into my soul that I think I'm scared to put myself out there with something if I don't really believe it's going to happen.
I understand.
Uh,
I think a lot of actors also listening too. It's like threading that line of wanting to be seen so badly and then also not wanting to be seen at all, where you're like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to put 100% in because
yeah,
because if it rejects me, like I didn't
right.
even do it all.
Right. You don't want to be seen failing. That's what you like. That's what I didn't
Yes.
want to be seen at. I didn't want to be,
Yeah.
if you don't put yourself out there showing what you're trying to do, then you also don't have to put yourself out there showing that you're failing.
A hundred
So
percent.
yeah, so there was years of that. And honestly, it wasn't like, but I do think I can credit that a little bit to maybe ultimately finding a surer footing and also like a sort of semi-interesting grounded version of a career, which is just that like acting as a career was not something that I like that was occupying a ton of my mental space and emotional space for at least a decade after I started, which
Okay,
I think
so
allowed me to just live a fun, normal life of figuring shit out. Could I
trying to
maybe have
hold
had a
on.
bigger career or something if I had taken it more seriously earlier? Possibly, but maybe not. I also could
You still were acquiring some experience throughout that time. And like you said,
have.
if you're learning on the job, so you would put it's even past Generation Kill, it's past YR, it's past all of these. Is it past Heart of Dixie that you finally are like, oh,
No, it was around that time. Yeah, I would say that the big a big turning point for me. So whatever, the Generation Kill thing, just because you asked.
Because I want to know also knowing poetry, because I loved Q-Tip rapping all the time.
That was
And
my
now
audition. So like,
that's what I wanted to know. What was your audition?
so
Just
I was like, I used to write raps too, and like me and my brother were in like an extremely bad hip hop group when we were in high school. But it's something that I was very comfortable with. And I had done a really shitty Vietnam War movie. It was like one of my first big jobs that wasn't just, it was my first big job that wasn't just like an episode of TV, was going to do this really shitty Vietnam War movie in South Africa.
Tunnel Rats? Is
Yeah,
that?
Tunnel Rats, yeah.
Yep.
So that was like, it was an incredible experience again as like a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old to go halfway around the world to shoot whatever. It doesn't give a you don't give a fuck what you're doing.
Yeah. Travel.
It was yeah, travel, and that was like my dream was to like to be back on the road again, flying around the
Mhm.
world. So done, dude, and you're gonna pay me for it. And when we wrapped up that shoot, one of the stunt guys on that movie, who was South African, was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to work on this great show right after this. You should try and get on it." He was going to work on Generation Kill. And so when I got back to the States, I went back to my waiting tables job, but I reached out to my manager or agent or whatever and was like, "Hey, I want to try getting on this show." But they had basically cast up the show, and I think the Q-Tip was one of the last roles that they cast. And so I think night one or night two that I was back in the States, I wrote this rap, I recorded it, and sent it in.
Did
And
you have to do an audition scene at all? You
I
just
don't
did
think
the
so.
rap?
Yeah, I just did the rap. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And I don't even know if I was, I don't even, because I don't even think they requested to see me.
I was just gonna, that was gonna be my next question is
Yeah.
did your manager or agent be like, especially during that time,
Yeah.
2007, like
Yeah.
making a tape? That's when I started actually taping when people wouldn't see me. I'm like, I'll send a tape. I'll send a
Yeah.
tape. And at least instead of asking to see me, you can just show them to see me.
And come to think of it, at that point, I never taped anything. I didn't even have an iPhone, so I don't even know how I taped that fucking thing. I remember doing it in my living room somewhere, but yeah, somebody must have had a little mini DV camera or something. But anyway, yeah. And so then I was like back, and then I was flying back to South Africa like a week or two later.
That's incredible.
And then I was
Okay.
there for 7 months.
That's what my question was going to be because Huertas and I were talking about it and some of the stuff that he said that he learned on that before he went on to his show. So 6 months, HBO, different kind of beast, boot camp, all that. Who else is in that show? There's Michael Kelly's in that show. There's some great people.
Skarsgård, that was his really
Skarsgård,
big breakout
yes.
role. Lots of
Are at that point too, are you like, okay, let me pick up some skills here? Are you just again doing this awesome Wilson? And also part of it is you. Part of it is so
yeah.
much now that I'm getting to know a little bit more of your backstory.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like even at that point, it was just like life experience shit. It was you talk to any guy who worked on that show, the experience of that was 98% being in Africa with
Mhm.
25 other guys for 6 months and 2% acting.
Yeah.
It was such a formative experience for so many of us in so many different ways and such a deeply bonding experience, such like an insane psychedelic experience that one of the rules of that shoot was that nobody was allowed to go home. Of the central cast,
Wow.
everybody, once you got there, you were there, which was a really cool thing that they instituted because it wasn't this I'll fly in when I'm shooting or something like that. Part of it is just too far away, but
The camaraderie that it built
camaraderie,
between
yeah,
all
yeah.
of you guys. And then did you know where the cameras were? Did I make that up? That John was like, half the time I didn't even know where the cameras were or what they were grabbing or what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, yeah, I don't know. Huertas he might have had a different,
Experience or
yeah, yeah,
remembering.
I don't
We all
know.
have different memories of different
Yeah,
experiences. We're
yeah.
all in our own little worlds at that time. Okay, so now that I know a little bit more, because my question when I was looking at your resume, I was like, oh, he does Generation Kill, and then he comes back and he does Y&R. Where some people, they would like their team would have been like, you're not doing a soap now. You've
Yeah.
just done this thing. Was that again just I'm playing tennis and this is a great working ground?
No, that was coming back and having a bunch of people, I think probably hoping for my career to really like level up. And it didn't. I didn't work for a year or whatever. And my unemployment ran out and I went back to waiting tables, eating my humble pie for the fifth time at this point. And I think I was like then waiting tables again for several more years. and just feeling like, okay, yeah, the acting thing didn't really pan out. I'm still auditioning for stuff, and I was probably taking things a little more seriously at that point. I think I started taking some classes that I was more into than I had been into classes in the past, and really was digging some of the craft stuff a little bit more.
Who'd you take with, just out of curiosity?
I was working at the
Mhm.
Steppenwolf West program with Tom Irwin. I think one of your other guests was talking about that program.
Mhm.
Great. Oh, you know who it was? Sheila Carrasco.
Yes, yeah.
We were in class together, and she was awesome. And yeah, that was like my first, because I had done other programs, but there's so many fucking jokers in this town, and so I'd done like some whatever programs. But that was the first one. I was like, oh, like I think I'm doing good work in here. And anyway, whatever.
So Y&R comes down the pipeline. You grab that. You end up, is that a contract role or is that a couple of episodes that turns into 78?
Yeah, yeah, that was what it was.
Yep.
It started out as a couple episodes just to make a few grand. And I never signed a contract, which was great for me because I was always
Yes.
that I was like embarrassed by it and I didn't feel like it certainly wasn't what I wanted to be doing. But it was also paying me decent
Exactly.
money and I wasn't
Better than waiting tables. Like
I was doing both.
you're
I was working at the Chateau Marmont at night and working on at CBS down the street during the day. I was at that time I had a car, but I just liked riding my bike everywhere. So I was riding my bike from Silver Lake to I would show up, I would park my bike at the CBS lot, work a day on Y&R, then ride my bike up to the Chateau Marmont, and then sometimes be waiting on like the old Grand Dame ladies from Y&R at who are then would come to the Marmont after they got off.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm really this very much mirrors, I think, the beginning of my career too, where you're just like, I don't know, you're just trying to figure it out. You're just
and having
literally
fun, dude. Honestly, like the humility thing, I think is such a gift. I think it's such a gift to be just like constantly just don't take yourself so seriously. Don't think so much about it. You're sitting pretty high one minute and you're really not the next. And I think it just humanizes the whole thing in a different way that I've been able to. It's part of why, to go back to the beginning of the conversation, why the whole publicity thing to me is so fucking stupid. Because
yep.
it is all this Emperor's New Clothes bullshit where
Mhm.
everybody is like trying to pretend that something's happening that's not happening or that it's 5% happening and they're pretending like it's 100% happening. And to me, it's all just like
Absolutely.
such horseshit and I have a hard time just stomaching it. But
Yeah. And I think that's exactly it. Publicity is, look, I'm in this one movie. You don't even know the role that I'm in, but
yeah,
help me get the
right.
next role. Because also, I think I had a great conversation the other day with an agent off mic, and they were like, you just need something to be relevant right now because you're a great actor, but nobody cares unless you're relevant.
Right,
Right.
right.
So how do you get and I talk about that a lot on this podcast, development versus relevant. We go through so many stages of being development over and over and over and over again in our careers. Like McConaughey did it, right? After he did his whole, I'm a rom-com guy. And then he's, no, I'm not. And I'm not going to work he was in a development phase till it
Yeah.
became relevant in the drama space. And now Oscars and like it's a totally different thing, but it's a constant reevaluation where publicity tries to skip that part, tries to like,
And it's also one thing if you're Matthew McConaughey, who's like a giant movie star. It's
totally.
another thing if you're like a journeyman actor who's no, like I'm not, I don't want to do that thing anymore. And like they're like, okay, then you'll never work again. Like we don't give a shit. Like Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey could have gone back to doing giant
Anytime.
rom-coms, no problem.
Anytime. They
Yeah,
were sitting in his inbox, millions and
yeah,
millions of dollars sitting in his
yeah,
inbox for him to be like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to
yeah.
wait. So then there's definitely certain ones that I want to know, but when I said, what's that one audition? Like, where's that one place where you're like, okay, craft is starting to hit. Now I'm taking this seriously. Or is there never really that audition for you?
Look, there's a million auditions that are like whatever, like stories. But to that question, so I guess the earlier question of like when did things start shifting, where I started, I think, taking it like a little bit more seriously. Like a big turning point for me was while I was working on Y&R and waiting tables at the Chateau Marmont. I auditioned for Captain America, and like I've mentioned this elsewhere too, but whatever. I think it's good for your audience to hear who might not have heard the story because it is what it is. But it comes down the pipe like any other edition. I read and
But wait, are they dummy sides since it's Marvel, or do you remember?
I don't remember. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But and then I get a call back and then I do well in the call back. And then suddenly there's these kind of like bubblings of, okay, what happens next? And then they call me into screen test, which was then at that point, it's a big fucking deal.
And tell me how you deal with that, because I think testing, especially how we used to do it before, as somebody who's floating between like, I'm waiting tables, I'm not waiting tables, I'm doing this. I'm like, are you somebody who takes on that pressure? Or you're like, whatever, cool, I could
No, I
win
mean, for
millions.
sure. There's no way not to. I remember like from the first time, like from that first, when I tested for that OC job back in the day, that was the first time I had that experience. And that never isn't a jarring experience of knowing how much money or how much this could change your life or not.
Yeah.
Especially once it's broken badly for you. You're like, okay, like I know the two.
Feels like you lost those millions of dollars, even though
Right.
they were never, yeah, yeah.
100%. And the money is obviously part of it. And then there's all the other stuff. And certainly with the Captain America thing, I mean, there's just no way to sugarcoat it or frame it in any other way because the truth of the matter is that as many auditions and things that I haven't gotten over the years that I really wanted, it is just like unequivocally probably one of maybe next to being cast in Harry Potter or something, probably one of the single biggest roles that's been cast in Hollywood in the last arguably 20 years or more. So yeah, it was a big fucking deal. And still, I'm like, if I'm looking at the odds, this a long shot, and it makes it hard for me to invest because failure is still the default, right? So I don't
Mhm.
want to go too all in. But I do my screen test and it goes really well. And over a period of a week or two, they do a process, obviously you know it, but where they start releasing people, right? So they release one guy, they release another guy, and then they released everybody except for me.
But
And
they
it,
hadn't booked you yet. It
they
was
hadn't
just a
booked me yet,
lingering.
but I hadn't been released. And at this point, then they invite me back to Marvel. Like sit down with the director. He's like showing me the storyboards for the movie. It's feeling like something very different is going on suddenly.
Yeah.
And then they set up another screen test. And there's nobody else screen testing on the second screen test. And the second screen test, I think they set for a month away, and they set it on my birthday, which I felt to be like a very auspicious
Yes.
sign. And again,
Have they given you work sessions? Have they given you notes? The director's showing you stuff, but are
no,
they
there
like, we
wasn't
want you
any.
to try this or we want you to do anything
There
different?
was none of that. There were new scenes,
Okay.
but it wasn't. I think that was part of the remarkable thing about it was that it was like at that point, it was like I was just like standing alone on a mountaintop, and I'm just like, okay, I think I'm looking around, and there's nobody else competing with me to get to that mountaintop, and I started thinking, I think this might actually be real. And which, as, as we know, is a very dangerous thing to feel. But so that month, so you asked me like what a big turning point was for me. That month was a huge turning point for me because at that point, I switched into this zone of no, this part is mine.
Mhm.
And now I need to start acting like it and taking myself seriously enough, which is always I tend to be self-deprecating. I tend to like just not even talk about things if I think there's a chance of it not being good or something like that. Like why expose yourself to the possibility of humiliation or failure or whatever? And suddenly I'm like, nah, dude, I'm fucking Captain fucking America. Act like it, bro.
So what'd you do? Did you start training? Did you
Yeah, I mean,
start?
it's like training a lot. So that was part of it, although that it was incidental to what the mental thing was. This is not, you are literally like signing up to be the leader of the Avengers.
I know. I
So
guess.
you are a leader now. You are not like the guy who like, I'm not making a big deal about myself and don't look at me. I'm just doing my thing. And it forced me to take myself seriously.
And
And
at this point too, are you in that month, are you working those scenes that you know that you have? Are you,
you can only work a scene
that's
so
what it
much.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, I was still working on the soap opera. I was still waiting tables at the chateau. At this point, like the news is out there too. So everywhere I go, there's people like, dude, what's going on with Captain America? Whether it's at the Chateau Marmont or on set at YNR. And
Is it also garnering you more auditions from your team? Are they using that as far as being like, he's up for this?
I don't remember. I was so siloed at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in class still at Steppenwolf at that time, and I remember working with Tom Irwin on the scenes and just feeling like in a cool zone. Look, fucking bury the lead here. I didn't get the role.
Okay, so that's what I want to. So when you go back for that final test,
Everybody's treating me like I've got the fucking role.
yeah.
And I'm doing I remember in hindsight, I was like, I'm definitely like in general, I'm not afraid to take swings as an actor, I think. And so we were doing this, one of the scenes we were doing that for that second test was like me and my soldiers are regrouping in a bar and we're blocking the scene or whatever. And they had me with a beer and we were about to roll. And I'm like, you know what, man? Cap doesn't have a beer. He spent his whole fucking life as this like this wimpy kid, like skinny as hell. Like all he's ever drinking is fucking whole milk to try and like beef up. So I was like, can I get somebody to bring me a glass of milk in this bar? So then they're like, yeah, okay. So some fucking set PA brings me a glass of milk. I do the whole scene with a glass of milk. Anyway, I thought I was like, I think I fucking
Making some creative choices. I
yeah,
like,
dude. I
yes.
felt good about it. And I left there riding pretty fucking high, dude. Like really,
Yeah.
honestly. And I think 2 days or 3 days later, found out that they just straight cold offered the part to Chris Evans, and I entered into a dark space.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about then, because nobody teaches us how to have like recovery on this. You still probably have to go to your day job and tell everybody that you didn't get
Of
it.
course.
You have to go to Y&R. It's not like this is the first time you haven't kept it close to the vest. What are you doing to recover? Is there anything other than time? There's just
Yeah.
nothing.
This time, and it took a long time. I had nightmares for years.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created The Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
For years.
Did it really fuck with how you auditioned or worked thereafter?
No, no. I mean, it helped honestly that Heart of Dixie did come along not too long after that. It
Good.
was probably, yeah, that
Did
Heart.
that feel like a much less pressure situation after
Yeah,
Captain?
totally, definitely, definitely. Look, there's still pressure and all that stuff, but no, Heart of Dixie. I think Heart of Dixie might have come around. I'm trying to think of the timeline. It might have been like just a couple months later. Because if that was my birthday, that was February. That would have been
Mhm.
like maybe Heart of Dixie was like tail end of pilot season. If not, it was the next year, but that seems like it was too far away.
Oh, I think, and it also makes sense too if your team was doing things right. It's if you
Right.
get even close to being
Yeah. Yeah.
that
They
role,
tried to leverage
they're
it.
on the phone being like, what else can I drum up? That's what they need to be doing. And
Yeah, and
that's
for years, this business being what it is, for years, they were literally like leveraging the almost Captain America thing to the best of their ability. At a certain point, that was like, okay, guys, we got to stop like number two runner up.
number two,
Yeah.
second position. The
Yeah.
almost is not.
Yeah.
Does that help? Do you think that helps with Daredevil?
In what way?
Like it's Marvel, right? Same Marvel,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
same universe. Because getting to watch you go from Hart of Dixie, and then yes, you have some great like recurs throughout before this, but then seeing you step into Daredevil, that was such a. But also, you started at the beginning of your career running around holding guns and like doing so. It just was like it just seemed like this swing, not knowing about Captain America from the
Yeah, I mean,
one
look,
world, right?
I don't think there's really much or any connective tissue, to be honest with you, between Daredevil and the Captain America stuff, partly because at that time, when I first started Daredevil, it was on Netflix, and that
Mm,
whole, all those Marvel shows that were on Netflix were actually not considered part of the larger Marvel universe. That has since
Oh,
changed because whatever, it's a long story, but
yeah,
basically
yeah.
all those shows got canceled on Netflix eventually. And
Mhm.
then the property rights were in limbo, and then they reverted back to Disney. So now, like all those characters are technically folded back into the larger Marvel Disney universe.
Okay, so Daredevil, is this just an audition comes out of nowhere and that's then you end up sealing the deal on this, like old school style?
Old school style, yeah, just with a
Old
fucking
school
gun and a
style.
handshake.
Just
Uh,
going in and showing you a little, I'm gonna rap for you. Here we go. We're gonna go
I
old
was
school.
still at that point. I was still every audition. I was just writing an unsolicited rap and just seeing what happened.
Like, I know you have a
And
scene. Here's the new sides. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
You don't need to say anything. No, thank you.
Yeah. By the way, I rewrite about 30% of the sides that I get, so it's not a
Do
far.
you?
Yeah.
Are you the person that does that more on set, or do you do it for auditions?
Both, yeah. No, I'm not like doing like a page one rewrite, but I'll change things that I don't like or that don't make sense
Yeah.
to me or like whatever. Anyway,
No, I think actors need to hear that because so many times when I'm working with other actors and they're like, it just says right here. I'm like, nobody gives a shit if it what it says right here. How are you feeling? How can you make the scene actually work?
yeah,
Can you make it
exactly. Make it
work?
work for you.
Make
Yeah.
it work.
Can't make it work for you saying what it says, then don't say that thing.
Don't.
And maybe it doesn't, and maybe it doesn't work for them. Maybe they're like, oh, this fucking dickhead thinks he can write the script, rewrite the script, but you know what? That's the
It's a
way I work.
swing. Yeah, it's a swing and it's a point of view. We got a strong point of view that way. Yeah, so I want to hear about Daredevil. I'm just was curious.
Yeah, look, I did 4 years on Heart of Dixie,
Mhm.
at the end of which was an amazing experience for me in all kinds of ways.
What'd
I
you take away from that? That's your first time being number one. Or not one, but one of the leading ensemble
Yeah,
casts.
but I
Yeah.
wasn't even, but like when I signed on to do that, I think I had 2 scenes in the pilot. So I didn't really, I ended up becoming essentially like the male lead of the show. That was not, I wasn't,
You get to climb the staircase to get to that point. That's nice,
yeah.
actually.
I
Less
feel like that's
pressure.
often, honestly, that's like often been the case in my career that and it breaks both ways. It has broken both ways where I sign on to do a part that is like seems like a smaller part and it becomes something bigger and great, which is what the Wade character in Heart of Dixie was. I ended up feeling like that character, I lived in that character in a remarkable way, and he lived in me in a remarkable way that was really genuinely enlivening and satisfying as like a life experience.
Yeah.
He was
How
a
so? Can you get more specific? If you will, I'm pushing you there.
yeah, yeah. Just as like a starting point, and this is like a simplistic starting point, but might as well. Doing the accent, which came very I'm pretty fluid with accents. I'm like it's not something like I love doing accents and it's something that I enjoy. And when I found that accent, it was liberating to me in this remarkable way.
Yeah.
And I just like the what happened to my body when I would be talking like that, it was just like the whole thing just loosened up. And
Yes,
and I think
yeah.
it is remarkable to me in general. That's part accents and things with my voice, whatever, like in my work. I really playing around with that stuff because I do think whatever, for me anyway, maybe for other people as well, it has all these interesting ripple effects throughout throughout your
Hmm.
physicality, throughout other elements of a performance. But in terms of the way, like I just spent so much time in that accent. I ended up talking that in that stupid accent. Just if I'd have one drink too many out one night, I'd end up not all night long like some fucking pretentious dickhead, but like I would slip into it because it was just so much fucking fun, dude.
It is fun. It is a
And
fun accent.
he was such a fun character that it really, I always say that like different characters for me, I always feel like I'm like got like a mixing board of the facets of my personality or whatever, and turn the knob up on certain elements of your personality or who you are and turn the other
Hmm.
knobs down. And that character, I feel like I just got to turn the fun all the way up and the charming all the way up. And in that regard, it was extraordinary because to get to live like that a lot and to be paid for it and to be celebrated for the parts of you that are the most fun and silly and charismatic and whatever is extraordinary.
It was a fun set too. You guys were
We had a
running like
great
a
set.
incredible family. Like I always considered these sets to be like, this is the house that you're stepping into as a guest star. I'm a guest in this house. You could tell everybody loved each other, how everything was. It was a smooth, by season two. I came in season two. That was a smooth sailing operation. Everybody was excited to be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't this heavy lifting like you were having to do on any of the other shows. You're not having to be 6 months in
Yeah.
the desert
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
throw
So
down.
that was a
Right.
lot of fun too, but
A
in a
lot of
different
fun,
way.
different, totally different
Yeah.
way. Okay.
So yeah, so when Heart of Dixie ended, I was at another one of those junctures where I was out of work for, no, actually, I went right into another show, actually. I
Yeah.
went into this Astronaut Wives Club show
Yes.
immediately because I just wanted to be away from the CW. That was like, it was so important for me at that time. By the end of Heart of Dixie, I was just like, I don't want to be seen as a CW guy.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. And then you're also playing a real character, right? You guys all were
Yeah.
in Astronaut
Yeah, yeah,
Wives.
yeah.
So
As it turned out, the show was not good, or it was like middling at best. And my character was, I don't know, I don't think I did any kind of remarkable thing, but it was good in terms of maybe a palate cleanser. But it was one of those moments, honestly, that in hindsight, I think there was a different way that my agents didn't want me to do that show. They were like,
they didn't.
they were, I think that was a moment for me, possibly, and again, this is hindsight is 2020. That was possibly a moment for me to level up in a different way. And I was too nervous about being out of work for the first time in 4 years
Yeah.
and not getting out of the CW thing
Yeah.
that the opportunity presented itself and I took it and whatever.
And then it was after that because whenever I'm looking at something online, it doesn't feel like there's a break thereafter.
There was, yeah. I think after Astronaut Wives, and look, like I'll say this, I literally have not had a bad experience on set in 20 years. Like every cast that I've worked with, I've enjoyed working with. Every experience of being on location somewhere has been incredible in different ways. I feel insanely fortunate in that regard. And so anytime that I'm like dissecting, the could have beens or would have beens of my career, I just can't get away from the fact that my work life, especially as compared to what maybe 60 or 70 or 80% of people's like work lives look like, my work life has been an extraordinary joy.
Well, especially for somebody I don't even know if this is like really
Right,
what,
yeah,
can
that's
I
it.
do it? I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know if I'm really,
yeah,
I'm one shoe in, one shoe out, then
yeah,
to finally be like, to look back,
yeah.
it has a
Right.
different essence of it,
It
right?
hits different. It hits different.
It hits a little different. And you have gotten to, I think there's also a joy, like you said, about visiting many sets, because you even said it felt like there was a slow period afterwards, but you're just getting to visit a lot of other sets versus stepping onto quote unquote your show or you're into your house. But it feels,
Yeah, so I did work. I worked after Astronaut Wives Club. I think I did a couple things, but I did a pilot. I did a few episodes on another show. I think I did 3 or 4 shows.
you did.
But I think there were also good stretches where I wasn't working. There was a lot of me feeling like I was very much in that time thinking about stopping.
You
I
were.
remember that. I was like, it was not ever a real consideration, but I remember like talking to my girlfriend at the time about enlisting
I,
in the
somebody
Marines.
wrote in the other day, they were like, can you talk to people about them actually wanting to quit? Like when
Yeah,
people, because
yeah.
everybody just seems like they have this peachy keen career. And I'm like, no, I don't
Dude,
think that ever goes away where you're like,
yeah,
it's like a bad relationship where you're like, I don't care about them anymore. If I don't
yeah,
care
yeah.
about them, they'll just be out of my, and as soon as you don't care, a job comes in, right? And you're like, no, actually, I do care. I
I
care.
don't know if it's as soon as you don't care, and for a lot of people,
Yeah, it
it
takes,
doesn't end up that way. But
that's true. That's true.
I can certainly attest to that for myself. I mean, literally countless moments of my career, I've just been like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. This
Mhm.
is sucks. I want to be doing something that feels more consistent. I want to be doing something that feels more meaningful. I want to be doing something that feels less selfish. The list is long.
I love that then that's your antidote to that is, okay, I'm going to go enlist. I'm literally going to be a
Well,
servant.
that was very much part of the like insanely half-baked thinking of that moment was that exactly.
So then what's the job that kind of changes so that we can sit back and
So
have
then
this
another big
collective?
moment. So yeah, like another big, I've been very fortunate to get moments in my career that allow me to gain perspective again in a different way. And they fortunately all pivot around me getting to do things that push me in different ways. The characters are very different, that are my comfort zone. And so that's part of the blessing. And the other part of it is just like where they land in terms of my life. So at that time, it was probably at least a year of really feeling like I don't, even if I'm like working here and there on some shit, like it didn't, I was just like, this isn't what it is. This isn't what I want to be doing. And then one of my dear friends in New York sent me this play that he had read, that he had gone out for, that was going up off Broadway, that was about tennis. And it was a four-hander that takes place at the like a final match at the US Open. And it was a remarkable piece of writing, a character that I felt so emotionally connected to. The tennis being part of it, but honestly, it was a character who was going through an extreme moment of self-doubt. And I read the play, and I had never before pushed so hard to be seen for something.
You couldn't get
I
in?
couldn't get in. They were like, New York theater is New York theater. They're not trying to
Mhm.
see some like CW fucking Joker, just whatever. And so over a period of a couple months, I just I kept pushing, I kept pushing.
And tell me how you're pushing. Are you having your agents and
Yeah,
managers
I
be
just
like,
kept on my
call, call,
agent.
call?
Yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't leave it alone. And
Mhm.
again, that's something I had never done before. Partly again, because that always felt futile. It was just like,
Yep.
if they're not going to see you, they're not going to see you. And I'm not a big star. What do they want with me? And then finally, they gave me the audition, and I did I taped a read out here in LA, and they liked me enough that I went to New York to then read for the director and stuff. And whatever, I got the part, which was, I just can't even tell you how overjoyed I was. It was a truly extraordinary turn in my life at that moment. Also, I had broken up with my ex and I had broken
Yes.
up. And so I was in a fucking weird, dark place. I was like, I decided I didn't want to be in my house anymore because the house just had too many memories. So I was like sleeping on friends' couches and just like nomading around. It was like weird. I was just I was
It
doing,
was a time. It was a
making all
time.
kinds of bad decisions. Yeah.
And you know what I find so interesting that the pivotal moment you're talking about right now? Look, television and film, the actor has to be the director, essentially. Like you have to come in with a polished performance point of view. This is what we want. We're moving fast. Okay, we can drop your point of view into this story. This makes sense. What a gift to transition into being in a space where you're rehearsing and discovering together as a collective.
And I had done theater before in my Montessori schools and stuff like that. And
Sure.
I had an
Yeah.
experience of doing theater that I think at least gave me a baseline understanding of the rehearsal process and stuff like that. But doing that level of theater with like real theater heads in New York was extraordinary. And doing that level of script dissection line by line and just going through and then I think we ended up doing 100 shows. That was completely novel to me. The whole experience was truly extraordinary. And right before we went into rehearsals, I was already in New York, and I got a call to audition for Daredevil. So I booked the Daredevil job just as I was going into rehearsal for the play, and it almost derailed. It was almost like an either or situation, but they ended up working it out. We started shooting Daredevil like at the tail end of the play. I think I had to miss maybe just one performance because of a conflict. But that opened up this whole other chapter of my life. So I went right from doing this play into doing a character that here I am, like we did one season of the Netflix show and then it got canceled. And then here I am, this is like 8 years later, something like
Yeah.
that. 7 years later, the show came back. We're about to start doing the third season of the new show, which is my fourth season. which is the
Wow.
6th season of the show.
Does feel like your career's been in two chapters, like now knowing pre-play, post-play, because the even just like a show like Untamed, like a show like I can't wait to see it, but Imperfect Woman, even Fast.
Right.
Can you pick one of these? Because I always ask people their process, especially after rehearsing, going line by line, getting so much into your almost body work versus head work. I feel like maybe the first part of your career could have been more head work. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm supposed to say this, or this is how this works. And you did well. It worked well. Now it's like really marrying the body and the artistry and all that. Pick either of those. Untamed, Imperfect Women, Fast. Other than reading the script, when you get an audition, what are you now? What's your craftsman tools of what you're going to put together?
Yeah. I wish I could tell you your analysis sounds great, but I don't think it's accurate.
Okay. Okay. Tell me what you think it is.
So which is just to say that I don't think my preparation has changed. I
You
think
don't think so?
not really, no. If anything, it's gone even more the direction that it always was. I'm very instinctual.
Great. Okay, tell me more. So do you just read it and then you're like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do? Because Kelly Garner just said that she did that the other day, that I read it, I throw it down like an hour or two later, I'll look at it later, and most times I still go with what I did first, with what my instincts were.
Yeah, I think that's often the case. And for me, yeah, I think the first thing is I have to like I'm extremely critical of writing. So if the writing is not on the page, it's just not something I can do.
Okay.
If the writing is good, it means that I can access it. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I can access it, like my writing brain can access it, it makes sense to me in some way. And at that point, I just feel like things start taking over, whether that's like physicality. Oftentimes there's a vocal element to it. There's some like the Untamed thing. There was just like a vocal element to this guy that
Mm-hmm.
made sense to me, and it informed the rest of the thing. It wasn't something I really thought a lot about. It was just it happened, and one thing informs the other, and then suddenly there's like a sort of characterization around this guy that works for me, that makes sense. I think that's whatever to actors who are listening to this. Obviously, like maybe not obviously, the most important thing is that a character has to make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that might not get you the job 100 times out of 100, but it means that you're doing your right version of the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that has been like to your question of has my process changed? The process has changed where I think I've just become increasingly trusting of my instincts. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I don't work things over on certain auditions and really tinker around with stuff or whatever. But like Kelly Garner said, who I know a bit, and I think there's a lot to be said about the instinct around that first inclination or the early inclination.
And can I also give you some credit, and you're not going to take it, but hours and hours and hours on set, hours and hours of reading script and performing script. But also, you seem to come from a rhythmic, like writing.
Very much so.
That
See,
seems to,
that was always the thing. Like when I was waiting tables and people would be like, "So, are you an actor?" I'd be like, "No, I'm a writer." So that was
yes.
the thing that I wanted. That was what I wanted to be. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be an actor.
Then now it all clicks for me too. Even like you saying, I'm not going to do it if it doesn't make sense, or you're going to rewrite it so it rhythmically makes sense for you. And you are an auditory person. If you're starting with voice
Yeah,
and then going into body,
yeah,
I love that. Jack Houston also talked about that. I have to find their voice first before I do anything else. And then that indicates everything that I'm going to do.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Okay, I have a couple rapid fire questions and then I'm going to let you go because I could talk to you all day. Most memorable first day experience of
On a
all
set.
of these. Yeah, yeah. Gotten the job, you get to set. Which one?
Like my most memorable second day
Yes.
impression was, I think my first day of shooting the Hart of Dixie pilot was like me and Rachel making out in a car, which fine, that's great. I got to make out with Rachel.
Yeah.
The second day of my experience on that set was me showing up for work going into the makeup trailer, and Rachel is surrounded by her little team of hair and makeup people. And I open the door and it all goes quiet. And Rachel turns in her chair and she goes, "You gave me this." And she had a big fucking herpy on her lip.
What?
And of course, I was like, I froze, my stomach dropped. I started shaking. I had no idea. And I think I just left the trailer without a word. And I just started like walking away, thinking like, oh, my career is over. I just gave herpes to Rachel Bilson, which, by the way, I was living in my 20s, would not have been out of the question. And then from the trailer, I just hear people dying with laughter. And she had the fucking makeup team put a fake herpy on her lip.
That's
So
hilarious.
yeah.
I was like,
That was a memorable.
can you have an outbreak that fast? Wow.
I mean, look, dude, I wasn't in any position to
Nope.
start fucking questioning. Yeah, that was a memorable second day. I think,
No, that's pretty
I
fucking
guess I'll
great.
probably leave it there.
That's
Yeah.
the cake. Okay. What's the one role that like you wish you could steal right now? Like I've gotten to see you do so many things. Like even, is it Match Me If You Can? I was like,
Oh my God,
listen,
why did you watch that?
I watch a little bit of everything. But
Oh,
I was
God.
like, that's a different departure. This is a different departure. You've gone in so many different lanes.
Yeah.
What's the one role maybe that's out right now or it hasn't been written yet that you were like, I want to do this?
I think I'd love to do something that's just like super grounded realism, just like super like Cassavetes style, just like,
Show Fast, the Taylor Sheridan. Are you
it's
getting
not
that?
a show, it's a movie.
It's a movie. Okay.
Yeah.
So is
Uh,
that
No, it's not that.
great? We don't know anything about it yet,
Yeah,
but
no, it's like like Sicario-y kind of.
oh, great. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
casting
think that
buddies.
it's just not something that I've really gotten to do. And I think it would be a real challenge for me at this point because I think I'm very comfortable doing different kinds of slightly heightened performances, but just doing something that's super dropped in and grounded would be a cool challenge.
We need a really good solid indie. Like whatever Maggie Gyllenhaal's doing next after Bride.
My hope is that I get one of my movies produced and I get to do it. So there you go.
There, that's the thing. That's the thing that's next. What's the one thing you've done that you wish more eyeballs would have seen?
One of the many gifts I got from working on Hart of Dixie was this is going to end up being a slightly longer answer than you're asking for, but very early on, like within the first month or so of getting hired, the marketing department of the CW proposed me doing this like fake PSA thing that they wanted to put up on their website or something. And at that time, they sent me a script for this little fake thing and it just felt kind of corny. And so I was like, look, let me shoot my version of this thing with a buddy of mine. Like I'll just rewrite the copy. So we ended up rewriting this what was supposed to be like a little viral marketing thing that they were doing. And they loved it. And they were like, dude, do you want to do any more of these? And I said, well, let me get back to you. And then I came back to them like a week or two later and I was like, I got a fun idea. We're going to do like a hardcore rap video starring Rachel and she's going to be like dissing all of her critics who think she looks fake as a doctor. And they were like, okay, that sounds great. How much do you want? And I just threw a number out. I'd never made anything on any kind of real budget. So I was like, 20 grand I need. They gave me 20 grand. And one of my dear friends was a music video director. We shot this music video with Rachel called Call Me Doctor. My brother produced the music and I wrote all the lyrics. It was right in my sweet spot, right? I was rapping. Like I recorded the rap for Rachel then to copy it, whatever. And that got released and we released it on Funny or Die and it got like 1 million views in 6 hours. It was like and suddenly, so that's one thing I think people like look up Call Me Doctor. It's fucking awesome, really fun. But once that hit, then I had the keys at the CW. And they were just launching this thing called CW Seed. Their like web series were big at the time. And so I then got to be I went in and I said, look, here, I want to make this show. And they gave me $500,000 to make a Vanilla Ice meets 8 Mile, like early 90s comedy spoof called Stupid Hype. And it's still one of my favorite things I've ever done. It's so silly. It's so goofy. We wrote a bunch of original music for it. It's like, it's off the rails, but I'm still so proud of it. It's so much like a different expression who I am, both as a human and as a performer. And then we got to do another one after that. A year later, we got to do another one that I'm also extremely proud of. This one was called LA Rangers. And it was again done with my dear friend and collaborator, who he and I did the music video with Rachel, and then we did the Stupid Hype, and then we did LA Rangers. We had a really amazing run of projects together. And LA Rangers was super fun too. It was about these two park rangers who were aspiring filmmakers who worked in Griffith Park. And every episode of the show is them like daydreaming about talking about movies or daydreaming about a movie, and they end up into an extremely stylized genre film. So we got to shoot like 7 genre films, 10-minute genre films or whatever.
That's amazing.
And each of these
That's
projects,
still accessible? Can you still find that? Can you still watch that?
yes, you can find episodes of it. It's really hard to find all of the episodes, I think, on YouTube, but they're there. Call Me Doctor is very easy to find.
Yeah.
But the individual episodes of some of these shows you can find, but it's hard to find like I think there's 8 or 9 of each of them. And I don't know why it's hard to get like through all of them, but I feel like 6 people watch those shows, and I just couldn't be more proud of them. Like the writing I feel proud of, the goofy ass performances I feel proud of, the production value. My friend Dugan, who I made them with, he's an incredible director. They look amazing. Anyway, yeah.
What are you writing now? Are you writing, is it more television? Is it film?
Film? I like writing movies. Yeah. I have a movie that I've been working on for 6 years now. The script has been done for 6 years. It's been set up with Leonardo DiCaprio's company, Appian Way, for 6 years, and we have come like inches from getting it made several times. We're back in feeling very close. We're trying to shoot it in September. So I would be the lead. It is set in the like grungy underbelly of low-level tennis at an Oakwood Apartments, believe it or not. Yeah. And I've got another movie that I'm working on right now that's like a Dominican baseball rom-com, and I'm always writing, I'm always working on stuff.
Always right. That makes even more sense for if it's not good writing, then you don't need to do it. Well, you made all my dreams come true as this part of this rapper side of you that I did not know about. This gives me joy.
Wait till you see some of Stupid Hype. I'm excited.
I'm going to tag it for people. Yeah. Come to the website. We're going to have them tagged.
Yeah. Email me after you watch a few videos of me as the titular Stupid Hype.
Okay, where can everybody follow along with your one post on Instagram? We need to flood your one post and one post only. Yeah,
good luck to you guys. It's either Wilson Bethel or Wilson.Bethel. I honestly don't know, but
we'll find it. Don't you
I'm
worry.
sure you
We'll
can find
it.
Yeah, and I'm nominally on Twitter as well, but it's the same deal. Yeah, you're not.
And then Imperfect Women is out now or out next week. It'll be out
in a couple days. Yeah, I think.
Yep. Daredevil. When are you?
New season of Daredevil. I'm very excited about. The truth is, like, Imperfect Women, my role is small. Like, I thought it was like a bigger role. It's whatever. But
that's why I wanted to ask about the audition, because sometimes women are the centerpieces and we get these auditions and you're like, I'm doing nothing. And I wanted to ask you about that audition where the
audition was a total sleight of hand, because it was actually a great audition scene that I
have time. I want to hear it really quick. Yeah.
It was a great audition scene I was super excited about. And it was not even in the show.
Did you do a Zoom or did you tape it?
No, I taped it.
You taped it? And which scene was it that wasn't in it?
It was a great fucking weird domestic scene. And I don't think it was ever intended to be part of the show. I think it was dummy sides, basically, that were like elucidating some character dynamics that obviously were helpful to the casting process. But so I thought I was going to get to do this great scene on camera. And this is the other side of the thing where I've had several characters, including Wade, including the character I play on Daredevil, where like I signed on not knowing what these characters were going to be. And they ended up being some of the most challenging, dynamic, interesting roles I've ever gotten to play in really amazing ways. And other times I thought I was going to get that I was signing on to do was that. And
underutilized.
Look, man, whatever. Maybe they don't see it that way. They're like, we utilized him just the right amount.
But you made a tape and you killed it. When you make your tapes, especially since you're writing and stuff, are you doing anything dynamic, or again, you're just following instinct? I'm going to throw it on this tape.
What do you mean dynamic?
I I don't know. Some people like to look at Odessa, who just did her audition in like a fucking phone booth for Marty Supreme.
Right.
As somebody who makes their own stuff, are you the person that's, I'm going to go make like a short video with this tape? Or are you up against your background? Yeah.
I tell myself that I want to do that. The truth of the matter is, I found it extremely difficult for me to be able to ask other people to help me with auditions. One thing that really changed my auditioning process a lot was creating a really very good, very trusting, comfortable relationship with one of these self-tape studios, with a guy, with specifically a guy who runs one of these self-tape studios.
Do you go to Joe Kill? Who did you go to?
No, his name is Boone. He's over at Intrepid Tapes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Boone. Shout out to Intrepid
Boone.
Tapes.
Yep.
Yeah, Boone is a really just solid actor and a great presence in the room. And the tapes look beautiful, and I don't drive myself crazy with the process. It helps me achieve look, I think I would love, I don't know if you saw that Val Kilmer documentary where he's like doing all the fucking, I would love to do that. But I would drive myself crazy doing it. And then when I didn't get the audition, I would be like, why did I fucking spend 6 weeks fucking agonizing over where I was going to shoot? No, I need to be able to feel that I'm doing my best, most instinctual, solid version of this thing, and then I need to let it go. I don't need to agonize over which take to use. Like, I need it to be done in an hour or less, like 45 minutes, and I need for it to look good. And what I say to everybody now too, especially like younger actors, these self-tapes, like, that is the end in itself. Like, the job is not the goal. The job is making a tape that you're really proud of. And even a tape that you want to go back and look at sometime. And because maybe you're never going to work again, or maybe you're not going to work for 2 years, or maybe you're not, and you might need to be reminded that one time in your life, you were a good actor and actually looked good on camera. So have some tapes with some good lighting and use good work and hold the fuck onto them, because it's worth it. And that is the goal. That's my goal, is to
I love that.
Have like a body of work of tapes that nobody will ever see, but I know exist and that I'm proud of.
Dude, throw a few of those up on your Instagram. That would make a lot of us happy.
I'm like, I'm so good in this audition. Everyone's like, no.
No, I'm so glad you said that. Yes, I have a little vault from the last 15 years. And sometimes I'll go back and be like, I don't even remember doing that. Right. Holy shit.
Well, you do. And it's just like fun to see yourself.
And I still didn't get it, but look at that work. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, can I get back to doing that work? Yeah.
And it's also cycles. Like such a good reminder too, that like good work doesn't get you the job, or it might partly get you the job, but a lot of the time it doesn't. You're not right for the role, or going for something else, whatever. And so knowing in your gut, having your own strong sense of taste and your strong sense of self, and knowing that you put yourself into this thing and you delivered the goods, that's what's important 100 times out of 100.
I couldn't agree more. That's where we end this. That's like that's the information where you're like, you know what? Fuck yeah. Oh my God, this was great.